Anyone who chooses to challenge how we explore one of the most fragile places on Earth and then sets out to reinvent it is operating at a very different level. Hi, everyone. I'm Katie Losi, Head of Partnerships and Conservation at Natural World Safaris, and I'm joined by Sophie Galvagnon, CEO and co-founder of Selar. Hi, Sophie.
Hi, Casey.
Sophie is the youngest ever female Arctic captain. She commanded a polar expedition ship at just 26, and she's the youngest woman to receive the French Order of Maritime Merit. But what really excites us at Natural World Safaris is what she's building now. Through Seller, Sophie is helping reimagine what exploration in the Arctic can look like, feel like, and even sound like. From near zero emission vessels powered by wind and solar that are virtually silent to a new blueprint for experiencing some of the most remote places on Earth. She's also helped redefine who gets to lead in exploration. It's why we're honored to recognize her as one of our natural world heroes. Sophie, we're thrilled to be working with you. We believe deeply in what you're building, and that belief is reflected in the journeys already taking shape. I know we have a small group departure for about 30 guests in May 2028 and several charter opportunities in the years ahead. So we're so excited to be here with you in this conversation and more excited about what's ahead. So welcome.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you to Natural World Safaris to having me here.
Great. So Sophie, before we talk about the cutting edge ships and what you're building with Seller, I just want to start with the place itself. You've said that the Arctic really kind of makes you feel truly alive, the smell of the sea, the purity of the ice, that looking into the eyes of a polar bear. Can you transport us there for a few minutes? What does that world feel like to you?
Yeah, for me, that place is truly special for two reasons. First one is my love for the ice. I had an instant crush when I met the ice at the first time in Antarctica. It was 2008. And since then, I knew that it was going to be the red line of my life. But then I went up north instead of the big south, and I started to explore the Arctic. And there I get truly obsessed and fascinated by the wilderness and the remoteness of this area. Being up in the true north, it's like being on another planet. You lose all your references. Day and night are not the same. The as the enlightenment is either major dark during winter time or major constantly endless light during summertime. And then what I appreciate is that you feel so small within this giant nature, and somehow it feels truly comfortable to be feel again like an animal, what we are
Mhm.
by nature. And I like everything in it. I think it's one of the few places where, as soon as I set the foot on the land or on the ice, I feel like an intense feeling of freedom. And I think it's also because we are alone in this hostile environment. And again, it's something about going back to our basics. And it's also about living the present, because there you have no other choice than to follow the nature rhythm. And it's every day a surprise, because everything is not as predictable as in our daily life. Also, with regard to the weather data are not as many as we have here. So often you have quite a lot of surprises, the good and the bad way.
Hmm. Hmm.
and and the landscape is just extraordinary. Again, it really feels like being in another planet. And even even the smell of the sea is different. It's the case in all the oceans of the world. In the Mediterranean Sea, like we have here, you have this smell of salt, and up there in the Arctic, it's something a bit bitter. Even blinded, I would recognize that smell. And yeah, and every time, often when you want to escape in your daily life and find some kind of shelter in your dreams or in your head, I'm always going back and thinking about the Arctic.
Yeah, it's a real nervous system reset. It just really kind of takes you into a different place.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's so powerful. I mean, it's not just me. There's this we call it the polar bear or the polar fever. Everyone, it's so mind fucking the fact that it's so different that it necessarily prints a lifetime memory in you, and then you get addicted to it and you just want to come back. And it's also why we have so many repeaters going back on our
Mm,
expeditions.
absolutely. And now you've chosen to really challenge the status quo, really you're challenging the status quo and how we're exploring the polar regions. Can you walk us through what you're building with Selar and why it needs to exist?
Yeah, so even as a kid, I was a bit like a rebel. I've never accepted that someone else telling me what to do or how to do things. I've always wanted to try by myself at first. And I love the maritime industry. I mean, it's also the industry where I belong, but there's so many pain points to be solutioned. And for example, I've never accepted to be just a captain enclosed in the ship. I've always wanted to think the captain position as something bigger, as also something that is linked to what we are doing, to the project, to what we do ashore, and such. And for me, entrepreneurship is a lot about challenging the status quo. It's what I like into founding new companies and new models, is that you create some kind of your own universe with your own values. And in that space, you're free to decide about your rules. And so clearly, with Selar, we are in a mission to challenge the status quo of the captain and the crew on board. They are not only crew, they're also explorers and adventurers. We are challenging the status quo of the tool we use. We think that we can do better today with regard to the environmental challenges. And we're also challenging the way we explore today. I think we've gone too far into what I call um, consumption of itinerary and of the Arctic. We've gone too far into ticking boxes, do as much as we can within a shorter time. And it's completely the opposite those regions are inviting for. They are inviting for slowing down, go with the nature's rhythm, and it's also an invitation for disconnection. So sometimes challenging the status quo is go ahead of our time, and sometimes it's also accepting to go back to be more in harmony.
Mm. And at just 30 guests, right? Like, I mean, 30, 36 guests, this is like a totally different scale than most Arctic expedition ships. How does that intimacy change what the experience offers? Like spontaneity, connection, like what is possible day to day?
Yeah. So for me, small size is really key to leave a powerful immersion in those places for several reasons. The first one is that you clearly enter regions where there's almost no human trace. So it feels completely absurd to go over there with massive groups or mass cruise tourism. You have to stay intimate to understand those areas and also to be able to discover them the right way. Another reason is that, as you could understand, these models needs flexibility if you want to be aligned with the nature rhythm, and this flexibility is only achievable if you have a small group. Then you're free from all the drastic logistic that is needed for larger group. You also, so that way means that instead of being just 1 hour, 2 hour on the field because you need to enter some kind of group rotation, you can fully enjoy all your day on the field, on the site. You can push all activities a bit further ahead. And you can also make it tailor-made with a group of 30 to 36. We have about 5 guides, which makes it possible to divide then under smaller groups, either to do different activities or to do different kind of levels. So that's for, let's say, the logistic. And there's also some other key point, is that those expeditions are also a human adventure. you're going to experience some of your best and strongest experiences and memories in life, and you're going to share them with the people that are around, and it's going to be quite hard actually to transfer that emotion back to the people you know in your daily life. So those intense emotion you're going to share with the rest of the passengers, but also with the crew.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a common adventure. You onboard the same ship for a period of about 10 days. And so it's quite key to have this special team fit in between both crew, passengers, and the guiding experts, because you're also there to learn. It's voyages that transforms you. It's voyages where you come back different, and also because you've learned so much from all the experts.
Yeah. Um, I'm curious, the word on the street, I'm sure even being on the boat and seeing the technology is something in itself. And from what I've heard, it's a solar powered ship that has over 20,000 foot solar panels and will cruise without any noise, virtually any noise. And the emissions are cut like maybe 90%. I mean, that's incredible. Can you tell us about this?
Yeah,
Tell us
sometimes
more.
I feel like it's insane myself. You know, I just came back from the yard now, and I was there at the yard, and where all the sails are built. They are 35 meters long, so they are giant, and they are soon gonna install them and start the heaving up of them, and it's a world premiere. So so it's truly exciting, and also sometimes yeah, you really get the thrill and the chills, so it's quite nice to experience. um, I was I had no doubt that the sailing ship was adapted, for the simple fact that our ancestors used sailing ships that were much less modern. We still have the Fram, a wooden ship in the museum in Oslo that was used to drop Amundsen for his trip for reaching the South Pole. And they did much bolder expedition with much simpler ships. So my intention was to do something that was adapted to our technology today. I mean, in a world where we can invent the IA, there's no way we can't find some solution to do some net zero carbon sailing ship. And so we started to work from our constraints to then define the technology. Our constraints was that we wanted to have a reliable ship that was able to do a rough expedition in harsh conditions, ice, cold weather, and such, and unpredictable weather. And so we started to think that the soft sails were maybe not the most adapted technology, as it's quite fragile also. They can break as you have some icing, and it's too much movable parts. And it's also quite heavy to operate. And so after a lot of work and the teamwork with our naval architect and my team, we found that solution within the aluminium sails. They have an ACAP profile, so it's a known profile. It's the same profile as the wing of an airplane.
Okay.
And then we cover them by solar panel, because one other green energy we have up there is the sun, almost unlimited 6 months in a row.
Yeah.
So so I would say that is the main innovation, but not only. Actually, there's a lot of different technology that is plugged to that. There's also like we have a wooden pellet boiler instead of a fuel boiler. We have a huge battery park. Our propeller are also regenerating energy as we all say to load the battery pack. So every component has
Yeah.
been handpicked for energy optimization. And then we also put ourselves some limits, like the sizing limits. Of course, you have a less impact if you're only 36 passengers than if you're 100 or more. And we also lowering the cruise speed. We do in between 6 to 10 knots, and it's completely sufficient to do great itineraries. So we accept also to slow down a bit. And the combination of both is key. So changing the behaviors and changing the tool.
Yeah. And it's interesting. You're talking about just like the experience. So I feel like a lot of people think of luxury as like butlers and five-course meals and that kind of vibe. But obviously it's part of the transformative transformation for the people on board is just like the access, the experience, and how you're kind of. Can you speak to like the experience on Seller, on the ship, off the ship? I know that you have some toys, everything from like snorkeling gear and obviously, of course, zodiacs to the kayaks and paddles and skis and maybe snowshoes. Can you share some of that and how that
Yeah,
impacts the guest?
there's everyone had a different notion of the luxury. For us at Ceylon, luxury is about small size, intimacy, and exclusivity, and it's about lifetime memories. What is lifetime memories in the luxury hospitality? It's something that you cannot duplicate. So it's something you're gonna experience, and nobody's gonna experience that either on the expedition before or after, or wherever in the world. And it has to be in harmony with both high-ended standards. So having high-ended standards with regard to the food, to the amenities and such, it's a given. It's not the main focus. It's not about that. It's about focusing on creating something truly unique for our guests. And that, again, is only achievable if you have harmony in your global model and local expertise. Um, and I give you an example. Our guests, they can afford to go and eat in the best restaurant in the world, sure. So it's not something extraordinary they could get on board, and it's not where we are going to do our best. But they couldn't afford to have a lunch on ice, for example, elsewhere on the world. So it's where we have our added value, and where we have to stage it to make the best out of it, and to
Yeah.
make it um, truly unique.
Yeah, lunch on the skin of the top of the world, the skin of the Arctic Ocean at the top of the world. Pretty special. Um,
Exactly. And something else is that I talk about non-duplicable experiences. It's things you do, but it's also emotions you create. So for us, it's also about always keeping up the emotion at the best, and always about cultivating the unexpected, the surprise, over delivering. And it's also sometimes about challenging, because as you travel, you always remember the thing that went wrong, that you
right.
corrected, or the moment you passed a bit above your limits and you felt so proud of yourself.
Yeah.
So we try also to encourage our passengers to that, and to create the atmosphere so that they feel comfortable in doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, my niece and I talk about like here's your comfort zone and like the magic happens out here. This is your comfort zone. Maybe that's kind of you're touching on that.
Exactly.
Um, and then if the ship is nearly silent, how does that change the way the wildlife interacts with the ship or with passengers on board? Like
Yeah.
how can you speak to that?
Yeah, so it changes a lot. The fauna up there has, as I said, it's almost no human trace up there, so they are mostly alone. So if you're transparent, then they won't be as much impacted. You're more, again, in harmony with them. I give you an example. The polar bears, they can smell more than several kilometers around. So if you have no smell, then they are not impacted by the fact that your ship is there. Same thing with the marine mammals. If you have no underwater noise, then you do not harm the fauna. And it's both important not to harm them, but also it's gonna make them come more easier closer, as they won't see you as a predator or something unidentified or unnatural in the environment. And then, of course, for everyone, whether it's the crew or the passengers, it's always great not to have any gas oil smell or whatever noise from the ship as you're observing in the wildlife.
Hmm. Hmm. Okay, I'm going to switch gears a little bit here. So you're part of a very small percentage of women in this field. I think it's about 2%. um, historically women weren't even allowed on ships, right? So how has that shaped how you lead and how you think things are evolving and kind of what your this new blueprint of what is possible beyond the technology, literally human beings on the ship? It's pretty extraordinary.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, it's something important, and I've always worked for the empowerment of the women in the maritime industry. And still at Selar, we have an objective of 50% women on board. I'm not sure we'll manage to achieve it first year, but we are close to it. We are now at reaching 40% and have almost closed our recruitment. So we are on a good way. Also to be noticed, it's the first shipping company that have been founded by a majority of women and that is managed by a majority of women at the board and in the daily life.
Wow.
So I'm
Congratulations.
really, thank you. I'm really proud of it. And we are not enough, that's clear. And the way I've seen it, as I mentioned, I've never accepted that someone else told me that something was impossible before I myself proved me that either it was impossible or that it was the opposite way around. And same thing when I was on board, you meet so many, I mean, in this male dominated industry, like in any gender dominated industry, you have a lot of stereotypes, and most of the times people don't believe that you'll be capable of or that you're gonna succeed in your career. So I just disregarded this and and tried to do the best as I could, and also to prove them. I love to prove people that they're wrong when it's the case, and also to challenge the status quo. That yeah, it's enjoyable when you when you achieve to do that. And so yeah, I went through all the steps along my career, proved my expertise, and achieved to be quite young a captain. And as I was a captain, I tried always to encourage, to promote the younger ones, the younger generation. I love to transmit, and I think, I mean, the future is in their hands. And also, I tried as much as I could to empower all the women in the industry. And I think today it's clear that any woman has access to any kind of position on board. They are legitimate to be chief engineers, to be able seamen, to be captains, to be stewardess. It's there's no should not be any differentiation, because we have the same competencies and we are as much welcome on board as anyone. And I would say that my leadership is to lead with example. And I also like to build up the team spirit and always to empower the people to grow also outside of their, let's say, basic position. So to go and explore a bit outside the job description scope.
Incredible. I'm sure that energy and that spirit is felt by everybody on board too. It's just like to have that level of pride and um, that's really something incredible. Um, so for someone that's considering joining one of the seller departures, I know we have one coming up with you in May 2028, and we have about a handful in the coming year each year. That could be a small group or people could charter it. Um, can you share kind of what makes this trip when you're on board fundamentally different from the other traditional Arctic voyages out there?
Yeah, I think what will make it completely different is firstly sustainability. There's no other ship that is sustainable within this industry. Then it's the true expertise. I mean, our crew and our guides at natural safaris are experts since ages, and combined together with a perfect tool for expedition, you really enter places where the other cannot go. I give you a concrete example. We are experts and know where the niche sites are, and sometimes those sites are in uncharted areas. And the ship is fitted with a multi-beam sounder, so we can go and access those areas safely. We always, yeah, we are off the beaten track,
Mhm.
and because of our local expertise, you get to know, have an authentic immersion. And then I would also say, and I'm proud to say that we have upgraded the hospitality on board with boutique hotel style service on board. So we really, same thing, we handpick all of the amenities, all of the furnitures, and they all have a story. So even the life on board is an adventure in itself, and we curate that life on board too. So you'll be welcome to grab a cup of coffee with the captain. Maybe if there's some bad weather, also you're gonna experience some escape game or murder party on board. You'll be invited to go and fish with the chef if you want to grab some fresh fish to then do
Mm,
some sushi. So yeah, it's truly again a human adventure both on board and on the field.
so fun. Um, I've heard that you're all about the unknown. It's like I think your tagline is to the unknown, and it seems like there's like a double meaning in there. Can you speak to that?
Yeah. So of course, I mean, I would say that adventure is about planning the unplanned in the sense that of course as experts we know what we do and we have a plan A, B, C, D, but then we readapt, and at the end of the expedition the route that you did and the sites that you visited are going to be completely different than what you had initially planned the first day. And it's how you make the best out of it. So that's the literal meaning of going to the unknown. It's because initially first day we don't really know how it's gonna end, and it's also the thrill behind it. And then going to the unknown, it's about pioneering. So we have our values. We have some core values at Selar that are adventurous, humble, always guest first. We are solver, solution finder, and one team. And apart from that values, we want to innovate and be pioneers. But let's see what the future opens up for us. We like to have the freedom of creating and not uh, always keeping up to a fixed plan.
I like that approach. And just to speak to that, you were mentioning like going out with the chefs, fishing with them or like being up on the deck with the captain. Um, can you talk about some of the people that you've brought together? So like scientists, naturalists, obviously there's like the expert guides and the locals, but can you kind of share a little bit more about how all of these people could influence the guest experience and how it's,
Yeah,
yeah.
sure. So for me, the people you have on board are as key as the destination in your
Mm.
experience. So we take great care in recruiting them, and we are quite demanding in the recruitment. They all have a large track record in their own field, and of course for the nautical and the guiding team, a lot of experience in the Arctic. And in the hotel team, it's also a lot of experience on hospitality up in the north, but also sometimes in hospitality in small luxury boutique hotels or in some other models. And it's this combination of competencies that makes then the magic aligned behind our brand and processes. But we also like people with soul, so it's not people you could forget, it's people that are open and passionate, that will tell you about their own story, that will tell you about ice navigation while on your deck. The chief is going to tell you how, out of nothing up in the Arctic, he can create local food, what seaweed to pick up for your appetizer and such. So it's always, yeah, people that won't be transparent for your expedition, and we cultivate again that culture of expedition, adventure, and expertise. And we like to have fun. We like
Yeah.
both.
I can
Fun,
tell.
hard
I can.
work, and
Yeah.
expertise.
Yeah, it's a killer combination. I can tell through your spirit. But yeah, and I wanted to ask a question about like so there oftentimes it feels like there's this assumption that if something's sustainable, it requires sacrifice. Like I think that idea of like sustainability or eco, that you have to give something up in order to, in the name of doing better. But with Seller, it feels like through sustainability, it's actually an upgrade in the experience, whether it's like silent and the wild how the wildlife is reacting to a silent ship or just being in a vessel that's filled with cutting edge technology. Can you share a bit more about that?
Yeah, I completely agree. Selar is a good demonstrator that sustainability doesn't mean go down in comfort or or up in constraints. In our case, it's only gonna bring advantages. It's gonna bring less noise, less pollution. It's not gonna downgrade the comfort. On the contrary, I mean, a ship that is noiseless and with a no vibration is much more comfortable than an old ship with an engine. That's
And the
clear.
fumes off the back, right? Like so many times you're on the ship and you can smell the fumes coming off the back of it, and that's not an
Yeah.
issue here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no. So I think it's also something positive, and we have to change our mindset with regard to sustainability because, I mean, even now in the news, it's all over the world that in France we are overheating, and the emergency situation is there. We all have to do some effort in our scope of expertise. We choose to try to do something better within the polar expedition. And the positive things is that it also brings it's a good circle in this case. And I think there's other industrial or business model that could also be some kind of positive circle. So yeah, we should definitely always take it as a first insight as an opportunity rather than a constraint.
Um, and then it seems like you've created this new blueprint for the industry of what can be done. I know you're saying you're like always been a rebel and you kind of have always been challenging the status quo. And what do you see in 10 years now that you're like, this works, it's better for all involved, win for the environment, win for the clients, win for like it's a win-win-win. Do you think that it's going to be an actual new blueprint for the industry? What do you see
I
in 10
really
years?
hope, yeah, I really hope that Captain Arctic, our ship, will set a standard and will prove. You know, you always have to have a demonstrator and a pioneer to prove that it's possible to do so. It's the same with the electric car. So now I hope that she's going to be a symbol that it's possible to build new generation of ships, and that other companies will also do the shift because at the end, I mean, it's there's more and more need for people to go and explore and discover those areas. So there's more than enough place for other players to come with the new ships and to shift their old ships. So I really hope that is within 10 years we're not going to see those let's say classical diesel electric ship on the water and have nice net zero sailing or other type of ships, hopefully all over the world, not only in the polar areas.
I feel that travel can be one of the strongest tools for conservation just because you're bringing people to these places. They have the chance to really fall in love with them in a way that's impossible through a phone or a screen or a video, whatever, a reel. But obviously, there's such a huge responsibility in that some of these huge ships, 500,000 people, the carbon footprint is horrendous, even worse than the flight that brought them to the high Arctic, which obviously some gets the, you know, gets a lot bad rap, but the ships themselves are really brutal for the environment. What excites me about Seller is that it's this new path. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, sure. So you're totally right. Tourism can sometimes change the behavior and protect the fauna. We've seen that with the whales in Iceland, with the gorillas. So definitely there are some positive impact in tourism if it's done the good way. And
Mhm.
it's what we try to go back to with Selar. It's doing tourism up in the Arctic the good way. And we are not perfect, but we try to bring an alternative that is the best of what we can do and that we will improve with time. And that's our effort and commitment as experts within this business, and to try to make it better than what we did before. And I'm also talking about myself. I mean, I've sailed on very pollutant ship up there, classical ship, and after a while, I was starting even to feel guilty to go up there for my passion and work, and to harm those areas more than I was protecting them. So I decided to try to do something a bit better with this expertise. But that, I think, is the first step, I would say it's in between the private sphere of effort, and then there's a second step that should align and also go a bit further ahead, is the regulations. So the public states, the local governments, I think they should also set some limits for those pollutant ship, or for the size of the people that go up there. So hopefully we'll see if we help them accelerate a bit with our model. But I would love that regulation become a bit more stricter up there.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Sophie. I mean, what you're creating, it's beyond the technology. It's a new blueprint of what is possible on so many different levels. You are extraordinary, and we're honored and so proud to be working with you. So thank you. And for anybody interested, yeah, we have a departure coming up, a small group departure in May 2028, and then a handful of departures every year after that, really. So we have a lot going on with you, and we just couldn't be more proud. And yeah, what you're doing is just like it's a new scale of what's possible up in the high Arctic, and we all know it really needs your support and your attention. And the Arctic is so lucky to have you at the helm. So thank you, and that's it. Thank you, Sophie.